So for those of you that were expecting us at past, we have been having the best conversation for the last 10 minutes, and obviously not to you guys, because without our guru of
the go live didn't go live, basically.
button pressing, we didn't go live. So Vanessa, if you're watching going, where are they? We are here. Sorry, we're just 10 minutes late. So
technical issues. I pressed the button, it played the recording, but then something happened. So apologies to all those who would normally follow us and be.
So if you are still there waiting for us to come on, or you've just joined us, do say hello. We'd love to see you. Would you like to do your intro again, Melinda? Because it was wonderful.
I sure would. And because the recording is available, of course, for anybody who finds us later. Welcome, everybody. This is the Business Brunch. Apologies for the technical difficulties and any confusion that may have caused. We are your working from home team. Today, I'm joined with my usual co-host, Sarah Farmer, and Vanessa Ashworth, our partner in crime, is actually on a mission away at the moment, so supporting us from afar. Please drop into the comments and let us know if you're here. We'd love to know how you are, where you're calling in from, and what you got up to over the weekend. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about having difficult conversations. This is actually a life skill, not just a business skill, because these are tools that you'll be able to use in your personal life, or if you're not in work, if you're not in management specifically, but you're just looking for skills to help work with other people, work with teams, and get things addressed before they become bigger problems. Because I think a lot of us have this habit of saying, oh, well, it'll work itself out. It'll be fine. I'll just let it sit a while. And you kind of hope it just goes away. It's natural. But unfortunately, usually it doesn't. And it just escalates and gets worse. So, Sarah, would you like to tell us a bit about your background and what makes you such a perfect person to have this discussion today with us?
Oh, can I be good enough rather than perfect, just in case I get something wrong?
Okay, the optimal.
So I'm an executive coach, and I have been coaching people, improving performance for many, many years. But I work with leaders, senior leaders, executives, C-suites, helping them develop the mindset and the skills to help them achieve outstanding results, both personally and professionally. Apologies if you can hear the plane in the background, but I have to have the window open today. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a model that is absolutely brilliant for people that need some very direct coaching, I guess you'd call it, for those people that you need to have difficult conversations with. And as Melinda said, you can use this. It's not just at work, but it's actually a really good life skill to have. I'm not saying you would follow the process completely with a parent or a child, because it might sound a bit formulaic, but there's so much to learn from this, from each step that I'm going to take you through. And whether you're a leader now or a leader of tomorrow, if you don't know how to do this and your mindset doesn't allow you to do it because of the fear of, oh, I'm going to have a scary conversation, you will never be as good a leader as you could be. Now, what does that mean? It means you won't earn as much. You won't be known for whatever it is you want to be known for. It will be frustrating. The anxiety levels that you have because this is going on in the background and difficult conversations are always there waiting to be had as a leader, will always be niggling at you. So it affects you mentally, it can affect you physically, and it can affect you in the pocket as well financially if you don't know how to do this. It really is that simple. So, but I'm going to give it to you today. I'm going to give you the model to work with. Obviously, just hearing it once doesn't mean you're going to be an expert in it, but at least it's a start. And we're going to be talking about this today. So let's say hello to who's here.
Absolutely. And let us know if you're out there, and if this is your first time with us, don't be concerned about jumping in the chat if you don't see anybody else there, because we stream to about 11 different platforms. And so you only see the comments from people who are on the same exact channel as you, but we see all of them. So jump in and say hi. And if there's anybody that you think might really benefit from this session, please feel free to ping them in now. It's the perfect time for them to join. And also, it could be something where if they can't join spontaneously, they can also watch the replay. So we have Howard is saying, hi, ladies.
Hello, Howard. Thank you for joining us today. Sorry we were late.
And we have the mysterious LinkedIn user saying,
Ooh.
greetings to all. So very friendly, mysterious LinkedIn user. But thank you for joining. We appreciate your being here.
Melinda, I know we normally talk about what we've done at the weekend, but as we are a little bit late, do you think we should get straight to topic today? Although I'd love to tell everyone that we went to the Secret Cinema this weekend and it was amazing and weird and wonderful and everything, and thank you for taking me.
Yes, the weekend's adventure was a production of Dirty Dancing put on by a company that's London-based called Secret Cinema. And it's basically the idea of not just going to see a film, but being in the film, being absorbed by it, being a part of it. So a couple of hours before the actual film screening, we were in Kellerman's on holiday doing, having the option to do, croquet and sack races and dancing lessons and, running around, listening to music. There were art classes. There was, mountaineering type or, field survival classes, all sorts of things going on. It's a complete escape and no phones allowed and no recording allowed. So
it's insane.
You are in the moment. And then during the film, they do kind of like a theater performance with the film in the background for key scenes where there's actors actually doing the things, which is super cool. And they will expand over time. Of course, things got slowed down a bit because of lockdowns and travel restrictions. But yeah, if you ever have an opportunity to attend a Secret Cinema event, we can vouch for it now because Sarah's heard me talk about it for ages, and I finally said, "Come on, let's go," and that's what we did.
We did it, and I have to say I was slightly scared about going, but I had the best night I've had in years, absolute years. Complete escapism. I loved it. Very strong Campari. Whoa, just the one, and it was wonderful. So thank you for taking me and helping me be part of your enormous crowd of friends that we talk about on the show. Okay, so whether you've done anything lovely this weekend, let us know, or shall we crack on with the main part of the show?
Yeah, Howard saying cool. So
it was cool. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, actually, it wasn't cool. It was really hot and very sweaty, but but it was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we get into the crux of the matter?
Yes, I think we should.
All right. So
give people what they want.
The people what they're after, yeah. So difficult conversations, challenging conversations that we have to have, but we don't want to have, so we can ignore them. Or sometimes we try and have them and they can go wrong, and sometimes we have them and they go right. But what I want to show you today is how to make them go right more often. There is a process. Now, the problem with leadership is no one is trained well enough, consistently enough to be the leader that they actually can be. And this stresses them out. And when our anxiety levels and our tension levels are higher, our ability to have these conversations is lowered because our anxiety levels are higher. So we're not calm ourselves. Tension levels are high. So I wanted to show you a picture of what I was going to talk to you about today, which is, well, first of all, what stops us from having these conversations. Then I want to show you how to have these conversations where the picture was coming in, and then how to prevent it. I'm going to give it one go, and if it doesn't work, we'll just take it off, all right? But I'm going to give it a whirl and see if this actually shows. Without Vanessa here, we're just lost, right? I'm going to see if you can see that. I don't know whether you can see all of my screens.
Yeah, we can see the whole thing. So you just need to like zoom in on one of them.
Right, it's about this isn't going to work, is it? No.
Or like visit page, and then you'll have to kind of scroll for it.
You know what? I think, okay, let's try this one. Because I'm on a Mac and it does really weird things. Let's go visit. No, it's the same thing. All right. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to talk to you about the 8-step coaching model.
Maybe stop sharing so it's less distracting. And then
I have. So first of all, there is a book that goes with this, which is here, and it's written by Steve Stowell. and Matt I can't say his surname, but it's a great surname. So if you want to learn more about 8-step coaching, this is how to have difficult conversations, the ones that are where someone really needs to move up, as in their behavior needs to change, or they might need to move out. So these are tough conversations to have. So the first thing is to think about what stops us from having them. And I've already alluded to that, which is our mindset. We have a fear of confrontation. We have a fear of difficult conversations because our innate response to going into what feels like a fight is threat. And while we're feeling threatened, either people will go and attack that threat and do it anyway, and maybe a bit aggressive about it, or they might run from it and hide.
And that people kind of shut down, don't they? They feel threat and the brain just stops receiving.
It stops receiving, and also the person you're talking to will stop receiving as well, because you're both in a threat state. So this explains what the first step is and why we need to do it. But I mean, I've been called in on several occasions into organizations that I've been working with to deal with the problem person, which it shouldn't be like that. You know, my job is to coach people and develop people so they can deal with the problem, the issue. And the reason that I get called in, and probably many of my counterparts get called in, is because we know how to do it and we can stay calm whilst we're doing it. And that's really the first thing to think about, is your mindset. What are you worrying about? What are you thinking is going to happen? And control that. But we're not talking about mindset mastery today for a change.
That's another day,
my bag. Yeah. No, another day. So let's think about how to. So there's 8-step coaching is a very well-known model. It's used around the world. I first saw it in action. Oh my goodness, probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. I remember, am I that old? Yeah, I am. Working at Pfizer, and Steve Stoll came onto into one of our conferences and showed us how it worked. And I just remember being spellbound by him. And I even remember the person that he pulled on stage was a lady called Kirsten. And she had to play a really difficult character and really be obstinate and have a really difficult problem for him to deal. And he just smashed it. And I was like, I want to be that good one day. So it's amazing when you look back at who's inspired you to be who you are today. He was definitely one of them. So the 8-step process, I'm going to take you through it step by step in very, very high level. Step 1 is to be supportive. All right. Now, the reason that we want to be supportive is this is the linchpin to the whole thing. If we can't be supportive, we will look like we are trying to oust someone, cause them a problem, we'll initiate a threat response, we'll raise their tension levels. We need to find a way to manage our tension and theirs and consistently be supportive. So you've got to think about what your intent is at this point. And the intent to start with is, how can I help you? It's not you've been wrong, you've been bad, you haven't done. Is how can I help you today be better, do more, be happier? Because these people are often quite miserable and frustrated. We don't know what's caused the problem yet. So the first thing is lower tension, be supportive. All right. Step 2 is about defining the topic. Now, this isn't an opportunity to do a shit sandwich, which is, you're really good at this, you're bad at that, you're really good at this. That is not coaching. And actually, that is just showing that you have a really high tension level because you're trying to couch that, oh, we need to talk to you about this. So be very specific. I'd like to talk to you today about X. And these are the observations that I've had. No judgment whatsoever. You did this. This has happened. I have seen. These are the results. It has to be purely factual. And the more factual it is, the less emotion you have about it. So you keep your emotion out. It's just, I want to talk to you about this. And you make it very clear that you need to be talking about it because it either needs to stop or it needs to improve. There's nothing in between here. We're not at a, oh, well, let's see what happens. It's, do you know what? This is affecting the business and it's been going on for too long, or you've done something really bad and that can never happen again. All right. Any questions so far? Please do ask. Melinda, if you've got any thoughts on what I'm saying, do interject so I don't just do a monologue.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where starting those conversations is hard. So, clearly saying, to start off, not just blasting straight into the, your performance is a problem and you need to sort it out. But by saying, right, we want you to be successful in this organization. We want this all to work. In order for that to happen, there are some issues that have been raised which we need to address. So defining the topic, though, is that something that you kind of start high level and drill down, or do you just pick like a specific point and start with that instead of...
It's one thing. So let's imagine let's give some examples of what might be a problem. So it might be a problem. One of them I had to work on not so long ago was somebody was incredibly high performing from the point of view of sales results.
Mm-hmm.
But the way she was doing it was not inappropriate, but she wasn't doing all these stuff to support it. So data entry, sharing information.
The administration things were missing.
Administration stuff she didn't want to do that. I want
boring
a VA
stuff.
The boring stuff, which is often what happens. Other people I've been brought into, it's to do with their behavior, the way they speak to people. So it's very specific at this point. This is what has been observed. There's no storytelling here. This is what has been observed. This is what you are doing or what you have done. And it is not okay for this to continue. So very, very clear. Now, one thing I would say is that I would urge you to give warning to people that you'll be having that conversation, because what happens is if you say, right, Melinda, I'd like to speak to you today at 1:00. And you go, well, what's it about? And you go, I can't tell you that. Immediately your tension levels go up. So I would always send an email in advance, at least 2 days in advance, to say, so I'd like to meet with you on such and such day. I'd like to talk about this in particular and explore what has been going on here. Now, it's not I'm saying you're right or you're wrong. I want to explore, or whatever your words are. This allows you to say what you've got to say calmly, because you haven't got to say it face to face, although you will repeat it in the meeting. And it allows them time to calm down, because the immediate reaction is tension. I'm in trouble. I'm going to go to a fight or flight state. And if someone is in a fight or flight state, they are not going to be able to listen, hear, share, develop, move on, or move up. I don't mean move on as in move out, but just move on from whatever it is. So we're giving people time to calm down. Now, I can't go into all the detail because people are probably thinking, yeah, but what if they ring you and say, well, what's it about? We're not going to do that right now, but just give people some warning and make sure that you've been very clear. And then you'll be repeating that when you get into the meeting. So the next thing is to establish the impact. So step 3, establish the impact. Here you are creating the awareness of what is actually going on. If this happens, what is the impact on you, on them, on the organization, on everyone else? And a lot of the time you're like, okay, so then what? And if this happens, so then what? It could be a financial problem. It could be an emotional problem. We don't know what it is, but you are looking for awareness. Funnily enough, most people don't go to work to be bad and naughty. They're doing things for a reason, and the outpouring, the behavior behind that is just the result of what they're feeling. So sometimes what you find here is people go, oh my goodness, I had no idea that was the impact. Most people go into fight mode because they know damn well what they're doing, and they knew one day they were going to get caught out for it, and they'll go into fight mode, and that's different. But you might find occasionally somebody is not aware. So establish the impact, be objective, be specific, but think also here, getting to them to think about what are they trying to achieve? Because you want them to start linking, well, I'm trying to become the next leader, the next CEO, the next head of. Can you see how this behavior isn't conducive to that maneuver? You're starting to link cause and effect together.
Now, when you say that, what are you trying to achieve? Are you implying that it's what are you trying to achieve by not doing X? Like in your example, the salesperson not doing the paperwork associated with the deals that they close.
Yeah.
Or what are you trying to achieve on a broader perspective of like in your role in general?
Good question. And I would say both. Now, if you don't know at this stage what they're trying to achieve in general, what does that say about you as a leader?
Yeah, of course.
It means you haven't done the pre-work, which is, we're going to come on to that at the end, which is how you prevent this from happening. A lot of leaders haven't spent the time because they're so busy doing the day job, actually figuring out what their employees and their team members and their colleagues actually are trying to achieve in life. And if you don't know that, you've got a gap. So yes, that gap needs to be filled. But it's also, what are you achieving by doing this? And I suppose achievement is the wrong thing. It's what's the problem it's causing? And why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know, how have you decided this is the right thing to do? This is where being a coach is really, really helpful, because you start listening to what they're not saying. You hear clues, you hear lies, you hear misconceptions, but you start digging for the real truth, because at this point you have an opportunity to figure out what's really going on. If you haven't done it, as you've talked about the topic and asked them what's going on and got their opinion on it, you can do it here. You've got to find out the facts. There's no point putting a band-aid over a problem if it's not the real problem.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know. It's like, because I think a lot of people like who are in that position of like the sales example where they're like, oh, well, I'm just not doing the admin-y stuff and filing the contracts and, you know, doing the paperwork because I'm so busy, or I'm working on more important things and so forth. So I think a lot of people at that point will be presenting excuses as opposed to, you know, tangible things like, just maybe I know I should be doing it, but it's boring.
A
So
lot of
it's hard
excuses
to make myself do it, or something like more honest, let's say.
A lot of excuses will come out here. And when we get on to step 6 or 7, which is confront excuses, they should really be coming up in 2 and 3, step 2 and 3. You want to be flushing this out, which you can't do if you're not being supportive and empathetic. If you're too busy being angry, don't go in there. You've got to be in a supportive, empathetic mode. I'm here to help you. I'm here to listen. Flush it all out. Keep digging. Why is that? How have you made that decision? Tell me more about that. You know, do a real good deep dive on what's causing it and what their real reason is for doing it. Now, it could be at this point they just say, I think it's beyond me. I don't want to do it. To which case you have a very frank conversation, which is, it's part of your job.
Yeah,
so what are we going to do? You know, you're either going to decide to do it or you're not. And if it's not what you want to do, how can I help you? But anyway, I'm rushing forward. But anyway,
so I guess the question is, right, if you're getting in this step, because obviously there's more steps to come, right?
Yeah.
If you're just getting excuse after excuse, and people are like, oh, you know, just I'm too busy, I don't have time, I'm focusing on winning new sales or doing the things, which are the fun parts of their job. Are you, as part of this step, yes, you're maybe drilling down a bit to see if you can get more information on why people aren't, you know, well, but like you say, you know, this is part of your job. We can't truly complete the sales until we have this paperwork in place. It's not optional. You know, what help might you need? Sorry, Alf, the cat wants to join.
That's fascinating.
But the but is that more dealt with in the next steps is the question.
Well, no, I mean,
like because I think you can really get bogged down here. And how do you effectively move on to step 4?
Okay, so if you're going to get bogged down, this is the place to get bogged down. There's no point moving on until you've thrashed all this out.
Okay.
So it's not an easy, you know, in the space of 20 minutes, I can't give all the detail of how this works, but you would go much deeper here. You'd get all the excuses out. There is a way to deal with excuses and objections. And if you've ever been in sales, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Let's have a look at that. Now here, you may also find genuine problems. I don't have time to do this. Tell me more about that. This is going on. This is going on. Okay. And you might see then, oh, there's a knowledge gap. It's not, we assume it's a behavior problem, but what if it's a knowledge gap?
Yeah.
What if it's a fear gap?
Or what if they're getting conflicting urgent priorities from multiple managers, which can often happen, that where the main person they report to maybe doesn't have complete visibility, although they should, but it happens that sometimes somebody else has come in and said, oh, I need you to do this right away. But that, I think, would be more like a one-off situation as opposed to a perpetual thing.
It could be, but it could also be a sign that these people are, I mean, we could start going into imposter syndrome and all sorts of things, but it might be to do with their confidence to say no. But what you're going to find out here is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've got the truth, then you can start to do something with it. So let's assume we found the truth, whatever it is, and then we initiate a plan. This is why it's not always bad news. It could be you find out things here that you just never knew were coming.
Mm-hmm.
You're assuming it's behavior, you're assuming they're just being irritating but you have no idea unless you've asked the question. So let's stop assuming and start digging. Once we've found out what the real problem is, we can initiate a plan. Now, this is their plan to be executed by them with your support. You do not write it. You do not explain it. You can create it together. And depending on whether they know what to do about it or not, if it's something really obvious, they should know what to do about it. You could be creating the plan together verbally, but you need them to take the lead. And I would always get them to tell you what they've heard. So that comes into the next step, which is get a commitment. Never assume they've understood the plan. Get them to tell you back or write it to you. What have we agreed today? Why is it important? What are you going to do about it? So one of the questions I like to ask is, out of 7 or out of 10, how committed are you? How sure are you this is going to happen? People find it really hard to lie to that question, because if they're not a 7, they won't go 7, because you'll see it in their faces. They will give you an honest answer. And if it's a 4 or a 5, okay, what would make it a 6? Because you've missed something. So you go back again, which is why as you look at the 8-step coaching model, it's a circle. It's cyclical. You have to keep dipping in, dipping out. You need to have real resilience for this and not think it's going to be a one-off thing. Some of these problems can go on for quite a while, and you'll have to keep dipping in and out. So listen for what isn't being said there. Watch their faces. Look, this is where having a coach mindset is really important. Hear what they are saying, see what you are seeing, but notice what they are not saying or they're missing. Something will be triggering in you, but make sure you don't leave that conversation with them not being completely clear and motivated to make that change. If they're not, it's a different conversation. If they say, do you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. I just want to leave. Okay, well, then we're into a different zone altogether. But anyway, let's assume that they've agreed to the plan. You've built it together. Maybe some bits they didn't know how to do. Maybe there's some learning they need. Maybe there's some other support. Maybe there's some work you need to take off them. Maybe they've been overloaded. The next step, 6, is confront excuses. Now, as I said, this could have and should have been covered in step 2, and if not in step 3. This is where all the excuses and problems should come out, whether they're real or not. What happens here is it might come up again, a bit like it does in a sales cycle, is everyone's excited. You're about to close the sale and they go, oh yeah, but what about this? And it's not that they don't want to do it. It's just they're now scared of commitment. Change is about to happen. Things are going to look a bit different. So we go to this change cycle. First step of change is denial. Second step of change is confusion. So everything was fine. Now I'm in denial. I might have gotten over that. But now what I might be is in confusion. How am I doing this again? So you just go back. It's okay. I get it. Changes can be really scary for people. Let's talk about it again. And you have to keep going back through it until they've got it. But confront those excuses. Don't think, yeah, we've got to the end. Boo, we're off. Because you're going to miss a point. And it's a bit like the sales that don't close are the sales where you decided that you'd done enough and walked away. And guess what? They never sign on the dotted line. Didn't ask the hard question. So check each excuse carefully, validate it, handle it. And then the 7th step, once you've done all that, is to clarify the consequences. Now, consequences to me says a bad thing, but actually it's understanding the importance of, if you do this, what's the great that will happen? What would it prevent us from having? from the problem that we're trying to avoid that was being created before. So let's get them to feel the joy, because your brain needs to feel some excitement. Otherwise it's going to go, no, thank you. It's too scary. I'm just thinking about threat. But we also have to be very clear. Let's just remind you, if you don't do this, these are the next steps. People find this very hard. You mean I'm going to have to tell them that they're going to go on a performance plan, or they might lose their job, or they might be demoted? Hell yeah. Be the leader you're being paid to be, and stand up and show them that you aren't going to be messed with, but do it very kindly. And the reason you want to do this is twofold. One is so that they take it seriously, but also you need to think about your reputation as a leader. I've seen many leaders brought down by team members who've seen 2 or 3 people in the team doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. The leader didn't deal with it. In the end, it's the leader that goes. Disrespect that leader.
And that kind of has not kind of, it does have a massive impact on the team, because I'm sure everybody has been in the situation where you've been in a work environment, even if it was when you're maybe like a teenager working in a restaurant or retail environment. You see a problem, you see that management's not doing anything about it, you see people getting away with stuff that you would never personally do. But then it affects your own engagement, it affects your own morale, because you're like, well, if nobody's going to call them out on the bad behavior, why do I even bother with doing the right thing? Because clearly it's not important, is it? So
absolutely.
And bad behavior can breed bad behavior, because if people think, oh, well, it's okay for them not to do these things, do this administrative work in sales, why should I be busting my butt to do that? I'm good. They've not had any consequences. I'm just going to follow suit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it affects, when people say, well, do I really need to do this? Yeah, you do, because it affects your bottom line. Because while people are being annoyed that they are being treated differently to the ones that are getting away with it, their productivity's gone down. Exactly. You have a great chance of losing great people at this point. They'll go somewhere else to a leader that they think is going to be fairer, and we won't go into the fairness and human psychological needs. It's all interlinked, but yeah, they'll go. So the impact financially is huge. Yeah. Avoidance is not an option. It is if you don't want to be a great leader.
The challenge
is you want to be a good leader.
Yeah, and the challenge becomes then, okay, let's say, and I'm being perhaps a little flippant on this, but in that kind of an environment, the slackers win, right? The slackers will stay, and the genuinely high performing and productive people will get frustrated by that, and they will go somewhere else. And then leadership has lost its credibility at that point. And it's really hard when it gets to that stage to turn it around. So it's not impossible, it is really hard, but it's hard. Yeah. And there will be attrition at that point, because all of a sudden, if the people who've been, let's just call them like the slackers, the people who haven't been doing the things they're supposed to do, suddenly start being held accountable, some percentage of those people will say, all right, yeah, okay, I've been coasting for a while, I'm going to step up and do the right thing. But some will be like, well, sod this, I don't need to, I don't want to do this thing, so I'm just going to go somewhere else where I can be a slacker, because that's my comfort zone.
Okay, sorry, I'm just conscious of time, and I just want to make one point very quickly, is that we've got to be careful that, remember, if we've found out what the problem is, it may be nothing to do with them slacking.
Oh, I know. And that's why I was saying I was being a bit flippant and making a ridiculous example.
No, I know. But I just wanted, just in case anyone hears,
anybody who has a behavior problem is doing it because they're a slacker. That's 2 totally different things. And they could be just overscheduled or overwhelmed or not clear on priorities, missing access to things, whatever. Yeah. There could be a lot of other factors.
You think about people onboarding, who some people think, well, you're not pulling your weight. I don't know what I'm doing. No one's given me any onboarding. Let's not go there about onboarding. We can do another show on that. But anyway, okay, so the last step is don't give up. Make sure after all this, you've got a follow-up plan. You agree what the feedback's going to be like, how often, who's doing it, what you're expecting. All of it is agreed, so that they learn, because you want to keep people. You don't, it's more expensive and harder to get rid of people. If you can help them step up, that's what you want to do. You can re-engage them. It's great. And you're only going to do that if you start looking after them properly. So those are the 8 steps as a whistle-stop tour. But very quickly, because we're out of time, is what can we do to stop it in the future happening more often? Well, we're never going to stop it completely. We're not 100% perfect all of the time. But if you have set a clear vision, clear goals, you're rewarding appropriately, you are giving regular feedback, regular check-ins, you know your people, you're supporting them, guess what? You'll catch them before it gets to this more often, and you'll have more fun. And added bonus, you'll be known as one hell of a leader. Leadership doesn't have to be this hard. We make it a lot harder because we're avoiding, and we're often avoiding because we don't know how to do something, or we just don't want to because it's not that pleasant. And here endeth the lesson on difficult conversations.
Yeah, and now if anybody has any questions, we're pretty much out of time, but if you have any urgent questions, feel free to drop a comment in on the chat, on the feed where you are. And that's something where, we'll be able to see that even after the show ends, through the magic of social media. Although I would say LinkedIn is probably the strongest channel for us to be able to see it easily. Like YouTube's a little bit more challenging like that, because we don't get the same type of notifications. So please start the communication if you think you could really do with a bit of help, or if your organization could do with a bit of help. This is a really small start of the concepts. It's a super high level. It is not the end of the conversation. It's just it's kind of a tease, really, but a very productive tease.
And then you can get the book, and that I can just say, knowledge is not power. Understanding the knowledge is power. So watch this, read that, and then speak. If you need more help with this and want to learn how to do it, then get in touch or speak to another coach who you know is good at it. And yeah, let's make your lives easier and more fun and more high performing and get better results. It's all possible.
And the thing is, when people, assuming that the person who's been the recipient of this discussion feels that they are empowered to make positive change and get back on track, assuming they don't want to just leave the company or whatever, but if they want to make a positive change, this will only help, and it will only help to engage them more. So yes, everybody sometimes has the experience where they've kind of become disillusioned with a role where they are, and as a result the performance can slide, and maybe it's because of some external factors and external stresses. But if people are feeling that they are heard and supported by management and given the guidance to do the right thing, things can be saved, which you might have thought at the start of the conversation were kind of in balance.
And actually, in that vein, what I didn't say right up front is it doesn't matter whether it's an up or an out conversation. Yep. It can still be positive. The point is you want that person to be happier than they are now. When people are underperforming, there is a lack of happiness behind it. And where there's lack of happiness, we have a responsibility as a leader to look into that. That's our job, is to help people be their best, and they can't do that if they're not happy. Yep. So either way, help them. There's no anger. This isn't school. This isn't personal. This is just work. But it's our lives as well. So let's do it properly. Let's do it kindly, and let's hear what the problems are, and then help people move up, out, whatever it is, it's going to make them happier and is better for both of us, well, for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Again, apologies for the technical issue at the beginning of the show, but we're glad you're here. And feel free to join us next week, when I'm sure we'll be on time and without technical issues.
There's a chance.
And have a great week. Thank you all.
Have a great week. You're all right to press the button now that says bye.